As we face an increasingly uncertain future, the desire to know how to survive in a wilderness situation has never been greater. You might be worried about climate change, nuclear war, global pandemic, or maybe you just want to spend some time off the grid. But how do you know which advice to listen to when it comes to surviving? Which prepper has the right answer? Well, the truth is that if you understand the science behind survival, then you will have all the answers you need. In this course, we'll learn the science behind survival so we can trust ourselves no matter what we face. We are going to talk about everything from finding clean water to building a simple shelter to signaling for help and starting a fire. So let's jump right in. If you've ever seen a survival show, then you've probably heard someone say, water, water everywhere, but not a drop to drink. And that's pretty true because most surface water sources are undrinkable. So the first thing you'll need to do in a survival scenario is locate a source of clean drinking water. Now if you're in a city, you might think your water's going to be safe in the pipes. But you should think again because water pipes are old and leaky, and they carry a lot of contaminants that aren't even in the water table. For example, lead leaches into our drinking water from these pipes, and that can cause serious neurological damage, especially in children. So if you live in a big city, don't trust the water in your pipes. Instead, look elsewhere. If you live in the country, then you might think that a well's going to be your best option, but you should think again because wells can dry up. Plus, they're not always free from contaminants. A farmer up north used his well as a source of irrigation water for his crops, but he didn't realize that his neighbor was dumping nitrates into their shared aquifer. Pretty soon, the nitrates leaked into his well and contaminated his water. So what exactly can you drink? Well, it depends on where you live. The best source of drinking water is groundwater. That's because groundwater is less exposed to human contamination than surface water is. It's also less prone to microbial growth, because there's no oxygen in the water table. Now, if you live in a desert environment, then your best bet is to search for flowing water. That's because flowing water is more likely to have dissolved oxygen, which means it's less likely to contain contaminants. Still, you should never drink water from a natural source without purifying it first. That's because even though groundwater and flowing water is safer than other types of water, it can still carry microbes that will make you sick. Boiling water is a good way to kill off most microbes, but there are some microbes that can survive boiling temperatures. So your best bet is to purify your water with a filter or chemical treatment. Filters are great because they remove sediment from water, too, which makes it not only safer but cleaner to drink. Some filters are more effective than others. For example, a standard camping filter removes most bacteria and parasites, but it won't remove viruses. There are filters that can remove viruses, but they're expensive. So the type of filter you choose will depend on your budget and how much risk you're willing to take. If you're really worried about getting sick, then you should consider using a chemical treatment like chlorine dioxide. Chlorine dioxide kills viruses, bacteria, and parasites, and it's easy to use. Just drop a few tablets in some water and wait an hour before drinking. But remember, water is life. Don't waste it. In a survival situation, you should ration your supply and use it only for drinking and cooking. You can use a canteen or a metal container to store your water. Just make sure it's airtight so it doesn't evaporate. Now, once you've got your water sorted, you're going to want to find a place to rest. Staying warm is crucial in a survival situation, because if your core temperature drops below 95 degrees Fahrenheit, then hypothermia sets in and your organs start to shut down. When that happens, you'll lose consciousness and eventually die. So to prevent hypothermia, you need to keep warm. The easiest way to do that is to dress in multiple layers. That way you can shed a layer if you get hot and put it back on if you get cold. If you're outside in freezing temperatures, you'll lose heat through the top of your head faster than anywhere else on your body. So protect your noggin by wearing a hat, scarf, or hood. It also helps to protect your extremities because they have less fat than the rest of your body, so they lose heat faster. So wear gloves and socks to stay warm. Another great way to keep warm is to eat high-calorie foods like nuts, seeds, and dried fruits. The calories you consume become heat energy, which raises your core body temperature. Another thing you can do to stay warm is build a shelter. A shelter will prevent wind and precipitation from cooling you down. It also gives you a place to take cover so you don't lose heat through your clothes. One of the easiest shelters to build is a lean-to. Lean-tos are shelters made of sticks and leaves that lean against a rock formation or a tree. They're easy to build and they're relatively stable. However, they don't provide much insulation, so you'll need to pile leaves or snow inside the shelter to keep warm. If you don't have any large natural materials, then you can build a debris hut. Debris huts are small shelters made entirely of twigs and leaves. They're harder to build than a lean-to, but they're also more stable and they provide better insulation. Now, if you're in a forest, you might think that cutting down some trees and building a cabin is the best option, but think again. Cutting down trees takes a lot of energy and those logs are heavy. You'll need a sharp knife or an axe to cut down a tree. Now if you have those tools, that's great. But if you don't, You could try to break branches off of dead trees instead. Or you could just look for a fallen log and hollow it out. Of course, you might want to stay warm so you have the energy to build a shelter, and that's where fire comes in. Fire is one of the most important survival skills you can master because it provides warmth, light, and a way to cook food. Before we talk about how to start a fire, let's talk about the 3 elements you need to keep one burning. The first element is fuel. Fuel is anything that burns. Sticks, leaves, and sawdust are all good examples of fuel. The second element you need is oxygen. Oxygen supports combustion. Without oxygen, your fire won't burn very long at all. The third element you need is heat. Heat initiates combustion, so you need a source of ignition to start a fire. One of the easiest ways to start a fire is using a ferrocerium flint and steel. Flint and steel is a method of starting a fire by striking a piece of flint against a steel striker. This creates sparks that ignite a pile of tinder. Tinder is something that catches the spark and starts burning. Paper towels, dryer, lint, and birch bark are all good options for tinder. If you have a lighter or matches, then you're in luck because you don't need a ferrocerium flint and steel to generate sparks. You can use the lighter or matches to ignite your tinder directly. Once your tinder is burning, you can add fuel to keep the fire going. You should add fuel gradually so you don't suffocate the fire. If you're not careful, then you could blow the fire out by adding too much fuel too quickly. Now, once you've mastered the art of fire making, you'll be able to cook food and boil water, which will make you more comfortable while you're waiting for help to arrive. But what if you need help fast? Then you're going to need a way to signal for help. There are a lot of ways to signal for help, but the best way depends on your environment. If you're in an open area, then you should build a signal fire. Signal fires are large fires that produce thick black smoke. The smoke is easy to spot from a distance, which makes them ideal for open areas. If you're in a forest, then you should use a ground-to-air signal. Ground-to-air signals are easy to make because they don't require a lot of space. You can make a ground-to-air signal by arranging rocks into a large letter like SOS. If you're really desperate, then you can even dig a trench to increase the visibility of your signal. If you're near water, then you should use a mirror or a flare gun to signal for help. If you have a flare gun, then you should use it during the day and night because the bright colors are easy to see. A mirror is only useful during the day, though. You see, mirrors reflect light, and at night, the sky is filled with light, so it's hard to see reflections. In a survival situation, the goal is to stay alive. No matter what you face, as long as you understand the science behind survival, you'll be able to stay alive. You'll be able to find clean water, build a shelter, and signal for help. Thanks for watching.